So first thing is diversity. When you go to Sheelite Dome and you go to Fort Knox, just amazed by how many different rock types there are, how many igneous rocks. And all of these in the area here were all in place. So we're looking at Sheelite Dome, because this is where the student did his PhD with me. They're all in place in a 2 million, probably less than that, but as far as we can date it, in there. We see mantle and a crustal component. We see hybridized magma systems. What we see effectively is early felsic intrusions. Then we see intermediate dikes, porphyritic granite dikes, and then lots of lamprifiers coming into the system. As I said here, we can see which one cuts the other one, and in general, the most felsic, the most acid rocks are first, then intermediate rocks, and then we get the lamprifiers very last. And we've got all this data in here. It's all happening at the same time. I think we can be very sure that this is magmatic. So, a lot of the intrusions here have got a lot of crustal component to them, right? So it looks like they're, as you say, S-type granites in a lot of things, that they would typically have high initial strontium ratios, and they typically have high delta O18. But then we'll have a look at these. We'll see very unusual mineralogy and mineral chemistry, lots of evidence for magmatic disequilibria, and a lot of this stuff in here is telling us that we've got a strong mantle component. So we'll just have a look at what the rocks look like. Well, first of all, remember this is just an area, say it's probably 1 square kilometre or 2 square kilometres. These are all the rock types we've got in it here. So this is just an alkali versus silica diagram. This is what people will call alkalic rocks and subalkalic rocks. And you can see we've got everything that's going from subalkalic granite to alkalic granite through diorite and quartz diorite. And some of these rocks are getting pretty well close to what we would call gabbro down in here. So very basic rocks. So you can see the silica content, 55% silica to 70% silica range. So a very diverse, considering it's just a couple of square kilometres, very diverse range. This is what the rocks look like. So I've cut this down. This is a lamprifier. A lamprifier is just a rock with mafic phenocrysts. Okay. So lamp means glistening in Greek. Fire means a crystal. So we talk about porphyritic or ferric crystals. Lamp is glistening like a lamp. So all the phenocrysts are biotite, or usually biotite or amphibole or pyroxene. They're all minerals with very strong cleavages. Right? And the interesting thing is, if you went into a third-year geology class today and asked the students what is a lamprifier, almost certainly no one could tell you. Right? But in a compilation done by a Canadian geologist called Boyle from the Canadian Geological Survey, he asked prospectors, these are ignorant people, never had an education, what was the most common thing that you associated with gold? Yeah. And the most common answer was lamprifier. Right? Because in the old days, people were obsessed with hand specimen petrology, so on. So the old professors knew what lamprifiers were. There's quite a lot of interest in lamprifiers, they're unusual rock. So they knew they had these glistening crystals. So whenever these guys visited a mine, they found these rocks and showed the prospect, look, glistening crystal, it's lamprifier. And they remembered this, and then they found them everywhere. It was a very interesting thing. It's the most common answer. And I asked my third-year students, what's a lamprifier? Not one of them knew. So it's interesting. So lamprifiers, just glistening. You just pick the rock up. It's a black rock, and you turn it in your hand, and it glistens because the sun is reflecting off the crystals. Here we've got some intermediate rocks. We've got more intermediate rocks. We've got some felsic rocks here. So you can see a big variety of rock types. And then we've got things like cyanodiorites and quartz monzonite. We've got a contact that looks as if they're mingling a little bit. They're mixing together. You can see this rock is over here. They're not clear contacts. Then you've got some contacts that are very clear, but we've clearly got, you know, fragments of or globules of this rock inside this rock in here. So big variety in a very small area. This is what I noticed with my hand lens. I'd worked on tin granites as my first, when I did my PhD, and I recognised myrolitic cavities. Myrolitic cavities, I don't know if you know this term either, my students don't know it, but there's a mountain in Italy called Mirolo, and it's full of these cavities. They were gas holes or vapour holes, so you're in a granite and all these crystals are growing in because you had vapour or liquid in water, aqueous liquid probably in the hole. And we can see here, you can see this funny thing that looks here. I think if I show up, oh sorry, first of all we've got these pyroxenes, big pyroxenes. Now any of you that have worked on granites, I worked on a suite of granites in Tasmania, on the west coast and the east coast, and I've probably mapped, I don't know, 100 different individual plutons, and only one of them had clinopyroxene in it. So this is pretty rare. But these are full of big clinopyroxene crystals, so that's very unusual again, even though they're just granites. And then we've got clinopyroxene in here. You see this funny circular thing in here. I think that shows. Yeah, we've got this circular thing. If you look at the hand lens, you can see it. It looks like a myrolitic cavity to me. This is what I saw. And when you look at it, it's got quartz and other things. I don't know what it labels. No, it goes to the next one. Now here's another one. You can see here. See this here. All these crystals are growing into a cavity. So this is telling us that these were very, very fluid or vapour-rich rocks. You can see it in close-up over here. And again, we can see it's clinopyroxene in here. Sorry, probably. Yep, clinopyroxene in here, and then quartz as well. So this is some really, really strange type of vapour or liquid cavity in the rock, telling us these were saturated in fluids. We'll see another one over there. So we've got quartz and K feldspar in there, and we've got clinopyroxene in the middle again. So this is just showing clinopyroxene close up. So very, very strange rocks. And then as well as that, inside here we've got calcite, again, which is very rare in granites, but in lamprifiers the main volatile is CO2. So lamprifiers are related to carbonatites, for example. So in some classifications, carbonatites are a form of lamprifier, and so CO2 is important, not quartz. So we've got all these weird phases. And then in the lamprifiers, of course, we've got the crystals. These are called battlemented, because they look like battlements on a fortress. You know, the fortress, the citadel here, it's got these battlements on the top of it, these sort of turrets on the top. You can see there's these things in here look like those types of turrets. You can see them along, it's like the top of the citadel wall, and they only seem to occur in these particular rocks. So these are very unusual phlogipites and so on. And then we've got dioxides in these rocks as well. So we've got amphibole ridge, we've got xenocrystic clinopyroxene. I forgot to mention the chrome spinel. We've got spinels in here, like chromites, that are the same composition